Okay, so a good place where I think you could start to do some conspiracy theory type research would be with these books right here. This book's really expensive, but that's forensic. That's an expensive book, but these other books, pretty reasonable, and all very good, and all kind of kind of tell you or lead you in the direction of your average conspiracy theorist, which, of course, again, they're all conspiracy theories until they're conspiracy facts. And today I'm going to be starting this series called Past, Present, and Future. And so, right now, today's Past, Present, and Future is brought to you by me. And we're going to be discussing for past events. We're going to be talking about some stuff that happened in and around the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. In particular, the movements of Oswald in Oak Cliff immediately following the assassination, which every conspiracy theorist and even non-conspiracy theorists will tell you are odd, to say the least. Odd movements from up here in Dealey Plaza to all the way down here to the boarding house, to Neely Street, all the way until you get to the assassination of J.D. Where Beckley meets Davis, right there. So Neely, Beckley. So this area is under renovation now in Dallas as of November, when I was out there for the 55th anniversary. So to this video now. Why the movements are a little odd, and we'll watch this for a moment. So in this video, they're doing the timing of the walk from him walking from Beckley. So this is after he's gotten out of the taxi cab. He's walked back to the boarding house already, and now he's leaving the boarding house and getting to 10th and Patton, where he assassinates J.D. Tippit. And this is what I've been saying is, these movements are very odd. Why the Neely Street drop-off? And then why do we have conflicting witness reports and an assumption that he walked down Beckley to get to 10th and Patton? So here, real quick, we'll watch this. So the character playing Oswald is walking to Davis, at the corner of Davis and Beckley.
Waiting for him when he reaches the next checkpoint.
And how fast should Richard be walking?
Well, the Warren report indicated that they were looking for somebody who was walking briskly.
In our first lay, we will assume that Oswald took the quickest way between his boarding house and the corner of Beckley and Davis.
So that's an assumption. She just said it, assuming, since there are no witnesses.
No eyewitnesses contradict this assumption.
3, 2, 1, stop.
Our Oswald's time for this first segment is 5 minutes and 54 seconds. At this point...
So 5... Right, conveniently, I guess maybe Neely's blocked out. But either way, let's just say it's 5 minutes to walk back to the boarding house once he gets out of the taxi. Right, he gets out of the taxi and then walks back to the boarding house. It's got to be at least 5 minutes. And then he's walking back now, assumably, under the assumption that he walked that route. Okay, so let's play it from here.
Point on the map. Oswald was just 4 blocks from the Tippett shooting scene. From here, there are 4 ways to get to the murder location of 10th and Patton. 2 of these routes are ruled out, as reliable witnesses along the way do not report seeing Oswald.
There was a witness by the name of Helen Markham who lived just off of Patton.
Although nobody witnessed the first part of Oswald's journey, there are 2 witnesses who did see his final approach to the murder scene. But the testimony of these witnesses is contradictory. One witness saw Oswald walking westbound on 10th. And in order for him to be where this witness says he was, he would have had to walk this route.
3, 2, 1, start.
Could this route have been covered in the approximately 15 minutes the Warren Commission says he had?
On the day of the assassination, a lot of the traffic was off the streets because everybody was in watching television or listening to the radio because they'd heard about the assassination of the president. 3, 2, 1, stop.
Adding up the maze of this indirect route gives us a total of 16 minutes and 11 seconds.
That won't work.
It's a tough fit, if it fits.
Okay, so 16 minutes and 11 seconds, not enough. Of course, if you're running, right? But if you're running, even in November in Dallas, I mean, it's been cold, but you're still going to be sweating. Someone might see you running. Nobody reported him running. So there's an assumption that he didn't run also. So in addition to their assumption that he came down Beckley, there's the assumption that he wasn't running. But what I would posit is this. I posit that in every field operation, there is an obs post or an observation post where basically, like in the old school, like in old school times when you'd have the general sitting up on his horse, you know, away from the battle, they were watching what was going on to figure out what the next strategic move would be. So in this case, I believe that observation post is probably here in Oak Cliff, because you literally have to go up a hill, and from, you know, areas, particularly maybe even this Lake Cliff Park here, you can observe what's going on, or from here at Neely. There was a building there, and a post office, one of those big mailboxes right across the street here. So I think that Oswald gets dropped off at Neely so he can check in, whether he's marking the mailbox, those big mailboxes, whether he marks that or he actually checks in with somebody that's there at Neely to let him know that he's back, because you can't see everything from there. Even though you can see almost all of downtown, you can kind of see what's going on. That's their observation post. And so that also explains for me this weird route that he takes to get to 10th and Patton. You know, how does he get over here? How does he get to 10th and Patton? Right? They're saying that he comes down Beckley, right? He comes from the boarding house here, straight down Beckley, to Davis, and then takes this route here to 10th and Patton, right? Takes this route down Davis, so Beckley. He comes down Beckley, down here to Davis, takes Davis to Patton, and then gets to 10th and shoots Officer Tippett right here, right? So what I think happened, though, or is feasible, if he's trying to avoid being seen from this corner here, from this corner, Neely, Beckley, Davis, and Zhang, if he's trying to avoid being visualized from there, right? He takes this back route. He comes out of the he comes out of here, right? The Oswald boarding house, and then he comes this back route. And he walks to where they can't observe him. So let's get this in frame. So you see that little beige house right there, that's the boarding house. That's the monument. And there's Neely down there. Right, so and then over here is going to be Patton and 10th. So he comes through here, maybe walks around the park, and then comes all the way over here to Marseille, and then takes Marseille all the way down. Obscuring view from here at Davis and Neely. And they can't see him. So the lady who was cleaning the house when Oswald came home, after he walked from Neely, from the taxi down back to the house, says that Oswald was in the house for a moment. A police car pulls up into the driveway, honks twice, sits there for a minute, and leaves. So I think that that's Oswald trying to avoid his contact, because I think that he knew what was going on and he was aware of what was happening. And even Judith Very Baker gives testimony and writes in her book, Me and Lee, that she says that Oswald thought something was going on and he was worried about what would happen. So he doesn't trust anybody who's involved now. And I think that possibly includes J.D. Tippett. There's a lot more stuff. So Tippett checks in. He says Oswald's not coming out. The people at the post here at Neely, the people at the check-in post or the OBS post here at Neely and Beckley, right? Neely and Beckley here are like, okay, well, go find him. And so then Tippett's out here, and then he pays the ultimate price for finding him right here at 10th and Patton. And Oswald's trying to get away. He doesn't make it. We all know what happens from that point on. Which brings us to things that are happening currently. The FBI apparently received a lot of heat from Hillary Clinton about how they were handling her smashing of the cell phones and the missing 30,000 emails. And so they assumed she was going to be the next president, so they basically let her ride. They gave her private server guy immunity in order to testify. And then he came in and he said nothing, right? It's like that lady from the IRS that agreed to come in and talk, and then she comes in and gives a talk and then just starts pleading the Fifth Amendment the whole time. So they give this guy immunity, the private server guy, and then he doesn't say anything anyway. True loyalty to the cabal, the New World Order. So basically the FBI laid off. There's documents coming out now, most of them uncovered by Judicial Watch, because they're not going to volunteer them. The FBI is not going to give up the fact that they're totally corrupt, virtually totally corrupt. Let me put it that way. Everybody likes to say it's only the upper management, but you can't have a functioning corruption without some lower people involved. So Jim Comey, is like, well, we have to try to appease the new president, that who's going to win the election for sure. And even here you can see that NBC News admits that Clinton's cell phones were smashed, and it says 30,000 emails. This is a Trump quote, where they're trying to demonize Trump. I'm not sure when this article came out, but September 2016. So right around the time of the election. So NBC even has to concede, yes, it's all in the FBI documents that government property was smashed, and 33,000 emails were missing. And then they're trying to make fun of Trump by saying that this is spy novel stuff. And then they say that he said that they were destroyed with hammers and acid washed. They weren't acid washed, and there was no chemicals found, which is what they go on to point out here. And they highlight it in blue, especially right here. There were no chemicals of any kind used. Well, it wasn't a chemical. It was actually called Bleach Bit. It's a program that goes in and disassembles the history of the machine. So, but that's not illegal, right? What's really illegal is exposing the fact that they're, doing abortions and then using the baby parts for stuff. Exposing that fact's illegal. Actually, technically not doing it is technically illegal, because somehow that's a government document. But, that's what's illegal, is the exposure of the deep state and what they do. So, with all the documents coming out and the information that's coming out about how the FBI covered things up, the FBI has been corrupt probably since Hoover was in there, right? There's plenty of evidence to suggest that the mafia had information on J. Edgar Hoover, that exposed him and Clyde Tolson as lovers, right? So they're in the closet the whole time. So Hoover's totally compromised, and Johnson takes advantage of that. And what the relationship was between Johnson and Hoover is difficult for me to tell, given that the personality of Lyndon Johnson and everything I've read, even in the stuff that really kind of tries to be objective, by Philip F. Nelson, and the Master of the Senate, or whatever those, I listened to the audiobooks. I can't remember the exact titles. Man, they're trying to be nice to the guy, but he still comes off as a sociopath. So it's hard to tell what his relationship was with J. Edgar Hoover. So, for information on past corruption, right? We got this. Oswald takes a piece of paper to Special Agent Hosty, and then Hosty talks about this later on. And this is from JFK Online, a website, where Hosty talks about how he was given, he went in, and Oswald is the first one to actually say that he was the one who he delivered the paper to, the note. It's an actual thing. Oswald brought a note to the FBI office, I guess they're in Dallas or somewhere near there, wherever the office is. And Special Agent Hosty says that there was nothing, it was an anonymous letter, and that he dumped it in some file. So he takes this note and puts it in the file, but somehow Shanklin's able, that's Hosty's boss, special agent in charge, Shanklin, somehow he's able to find the note before Hosty even gets back to the office and calls him in to talk to him about it, according to Hosty. Even though it's an anonymous letter of a guff, which is what apparently Hosty referred to, like the personal threats and stuff like that you get as a special agent. So, but Hosty never says he filed it with the Oswald stuff, even though he admits he did contact Oswald's wife twice before the assassination. He says he doesn't know where the paper came from, and it's an anonymous letter. Although, again, somehow Shanklin was able to access it relatively quickly. So in this part of the book that Hosty wrote, he spends a lot of time, attacking the looks of Lee Harvey Oswald, and how he looks like a little twerp, and he's small, and he looked like a little punk. And so then Hosty puts it together while Fritz, the head of the Dallas Police Department, the chief, is interrogating with Hosty present Lee Harvey Oswald. And Fritz is like, what's going on? So apparently Fritz had contacted Shanklin. Shanklin went into Hosty's office and so he says, Hosty says, when I received this note from Nanny Lee Fenner, a former chief stenographer, let's highlight it, and then you can read it for yourself here. When I received this note, okay, so when I received this note from Nanny Lee Fenner, a former chief juggling 35 to 40 cases, mostly on radical right-wing subversives, and had no way of knowing who might have written the note. I suspected it had come from a particular radical right-winger I had been investigating simply because I had recently interviewed his wife. So that's, I guess he's kind of trying to say he put it in the Oswald file, but so they find it. And like I said, he says he's just getting guff. Shanklin flips out on him. These are in Hosty's words, right? And so then they're worried that Hoover's going to find out about the letter. And this guy Howe, who is this guy Howe, Howe, right there. Was Hosty's direct supervisor, and that's an image of Hosty, I guess, Special Agent James Hosty. So that was his direct supervisor. So they find this letter, and they have this whole conversation. So Hosty decides, okay, I'm going to go and I'm going to make a note on it, and we'll put it in Oswald's file. And then, so then he goes back to him, and he's standing there, and Jim, who's Jim Howe, now that Oswald, so let's see, as I walked into Shanklin's office, this is after the note's been dictated by the secretary there, a note regarding the note that Oswald dropped off. His desk, looking over my shoulder, I saw Howe standing in the doorway watching. I could tell by the expression that something was up. Shanklin cradled his cigarette in the ashtray and stood up behind the desk. Jim, now that Oswald is dead, there clearly isn't going to be a trial. He began reaching down into his open do not file drawer. He pulled out the note that Oswald had delivered to this office 10 days before the assassination, as well as the memo I had dictated on Friday explaining how I had come to receive the note. He thrust them at me and said, "Here, take these. I don't want to ever see them again." I took the memo and note from him and looked at him questioningly. Though I knew he was exhausted, he looked totally in control. Smoke from his cigarette billowed out of his nose. He was deadly serious, his eyes staring at me calmly. I must have looked concerned or perplexed, which Shanklin instantly read. Look, I know this note proves nothing, but you know how people will second guess us. I knew who those people, quote unquote, were. Hoover and some of his lackeys. Monday morning quarterbacking was legendary in the FBI, with some of the higher ups sure to run through 1,000 what ifs. Without really thinking any more about it, I began tearing the note up in the memo right in front of Shanklin and Howe. No, not here, I told you. I don't want to see them again. Now get them out of here, Shanklin insisted. I walked out of his office with the partially torn papers. Kyle Clark, the ASAC, the assistant special agent in charge, was sitting at his desk in his office next to Shanklin's. When I walked by the open door of his office, I saw him look up quickly. As I walked a few steps farther, Clark jumped up and went into Shanklin's office, shutting the door. I was left alone with the job of destroying the papers. I walked past my desk, realizing I couldn't do it there. In fact, I thought if I was going to do this, I needed to be alone. So basically, he goes on, he says he ripped them up and then flushed them down the toilet. Those are Special Agent Hostie's own words. And the fact that nobody really knows what's on those letters, because when Hostie talks about them, he puts quotes around it, but it's not a direct quote. He says right before he puts the quote around it, he says essentially. So those are Hostie's words from his book about what happened. So that's corruption, right? That's the destruction of evidence, right? Is that a shocker? Is it a shocker that shit's still going on today? Is anybody shocked and amazed at the corruption? And Hostie wasn't an upper. He was a regular dude doing footwork. So like I said, you can't have good corruption unless there are some people on the ground involved. And that's what's going on now. That's what's been going on. That was going on probably before they killed Kennedy. So, how big do you want the government to be? So what does the future hold then? It's hard to say, right? The people who are censoring, the people doing all the censoring, are the real fascists. That's what fascists do. Fascists censor people, right? Not Americans. Americans don't censor people. Fascists censor people. People that don't want you to know stuff. That's who censors people. People who don't want anybody else's fucking line out there but their line. Their line is the only line. And that's what the New World Order does. They put their line out and they censor everybody else. They censor them and then they try to destroy them financially by not even letting the people that appreciate what the people who are censored are saying. And about it in a logical, rational manner. They don't want you to even have access to it, and they don't want you to support logic and rationality, even though supposedly they're the science party. There's people in the Republican Party too that are taken over by basically the New World Order. But it's the fascists who censor people. They censor them, they demonize them, they destroy them financially, they put them in ghettos, and then they come and kill them. Those are the fascists, not the people who want all the information. Those aren't the fascists. The people who want to talk about the possibilities, those aren't the fascists. Those are the people that want to know what's possible. And you can see what's possible. The fascists censor it. They censor it. They destroy it and flush it down the toilet where they belong. Those are the fascists. So, the future is this. Here we go. This is what I think, aside from fascism working its way in, these are the people working the fascism into the system.
Nobody in this country who got rich on his own. Nobody. You built a factory out there, good for you, but I want to be clear. You moved your goods to market on the roads the rest of us paid for. You hired workers the rest of us paid to educate. You were...
You moved your stuff on the roads we built. Well, they paid the taxes too, right? It's everybody forgets that the people that work at those businesses also pay taxes. Another thing that these communists tend to forget is that once you have $1 billion and you've already paid taxes on it, you don't have to pay taxes on it anymore. But they're trying to destroy that now too, especially this person, especially her, Elizabeth Warren.
Safe in your factory because of police forces and fire forces that the rest of us paid for. You didn't have to worry that marauding bands would come and seize everything at your factory and hide.
No, because we have a Second Amendment. First Amendment, again, with the Second Amendment, somehow they don't realize what the words "shall not be infringed" means. So what's next is the real fascist socialists are coming. They're running for president. They're all getting great positions. They want to take away plane flight and they want to pay people to not work. And you can try to say that that's not true, but it was there, and then they changed it. The ironic fellow that said that it didn't happen on Tucker Carlson, he's a liar. And so then I think this is also next. So so this guy kills his girlfriend and the baby, and it says. Prosecutors initially included the charge of abortion against the Queens man arrested Friday in his girlfriend's murder, but rescinded because the government Cuomo's new Reproductive Health Act. That's called the Reproductive Health Act. Now, they're going to file second-degree murder charges against the guy, but it's called reproductive health. I don't know, that dude that killed his girlfriend, he didn't make her very healthy. And that's just me speaking as a doctor. It's ironic, right? It's 1984 fascism. It's INGSOC, right? With an I, I-N-G-S-O-C, INGSOC, English socialism, even though English is spelled with an E. The whole thing is upside down world, right? They're yelling at you and calling you the fascist if you're somewhat conservative and you're aware that the Klan was started by the Democrat Party. And that you still have Democrats that are wearing blackface going as a planet? Is that called Guinea, WAP, whatever, you know, WAP without papers, right? Whoop, did that hurt? Let's see. No, I didn't feel anything, you know. But let me tell you something. Don't fucking touch me. Okay? I won't touch you. You don't touch me. Those are the rules. All right? Sticks and stones may break my bones, but names will never hurt me. Somehow we forgot that it's words and opinion, but they want to censor the opinion. That's the goal, right? That's the goal to the destruction of the First Amendment. And then the goal to the destruction of the Second Amendment, of course, is to not let you be able to fight back, even though you hear these basic pieces of shit saying they're going to fucking nuke people. That's a piece of shit representative from California. You're going to nuke people? Fuck you. You fucking shitbag. Piece of garbage. Filthy anti-American piece of shit. That's what you are. They need to get you out of office. You need to be unelected. Because you're so anti-American. The words shall not be infringed truly don't mean anything to you. You hate this country. So, and then finally, I like to wrap up this edition of Past, Present, and Future with a medical case. I saw a patient the other day in the clinic. This was an older that they didn't have neck pain, but they had mid-back pain. So what does that tell you, right? So if you go back and you look at cases of forensic pathology, what you can see is that chest trauma, whether you're falling off of a building or running into your steering wheel in a motor vehicle crash, do not uncommonly, depending on the force of the trauma, of course, rupture your aorta. And a lot of times that aortic rupture pain radiates into your back. So that individual, I recommended that they go to the emergency room for a CT scan of their chest, in the fear that with the trauma that I saw, even a few hours after, right? Who knows? Maybe there was a tiny tear and it's just been worsening and it turned into an aneurysm and wasn't ready to rupture yet. Just a little bubbling, a little outpouching of the of the vascular wall was causing the pain. Right? It's very sensitive, visceral pain in those areas. So that's my final case for today, or that's my wrap-up case, and I'll try to do that with every past, present, and future that I try to bring together, hopefully in a little more cohesive manner. But either way, sometimes it sounds like rambling, but hopefully the thoughts come through there for you. All right? Good luck, my fellow Americans. God bless you, and God bless America.